Hi everyone, today we're going to take a look at this 2-port in-car USB charger from Carbonn. Now Carbonn is actually a sister company of Talk Mobile, and they've given this to me to review along with some other stuff. Now this is the first time they've given me anything to review, so hopefully it's good, otherwise it's going to be kind of awkward if I review it and it sucks. Now there are hundreds or even thousands of USB car chargers, USB chargers out there, and it's very hard to tell which ones are good because some of them you plug in your phone, you plug in your tablet and it says it's charging, but then after a couple of hours of driving you realize that it hasn't really put hardly any charge into it. And the reason for that is there are maximum outputs, and this one says that it can output up to 5 volts 3.1 amp, which means we should be able to get around 2.1 amp on one and 1 amp on the other. So it's not the best or highest one ever, but it's a lot better than the really cheap ones out there, because a lot of them can only output 1 amp or even 1 amp between the two. So what I'm going to do today is a technical analysis of this to see if we really can draw out 3.1 amp. Now of course usually you'd plug this into the cigarette lighter socket in your car or your accessory socket, but it's going to be too difficult to shoot inside my car. So I'm using this thing here, which gives us 2 accessory sockets and it's plugged into a 12-volt power source. It's exactly the same as doing it in the car, but I can do it inside where I can shoot a lot easier. Plug it in, and you can see it does have a blue light on the end just to show it's working, and apparently this works at 12 volts and 24 volts. We're going to check that out later, but right now I'm running it from 12 volts. Now what I've got here is a watt meter that lets us measure how much power is being consumed from this little USB charger. So that will let us measure the overall power, but what I'm also going to do is measure it on the output here. Now usually you just plug your phone or your iPad or whatever it is you want to charge in here, but because we want to measure the power we're going to use USB watt meters. Now this may be a little bit complicated for some people, but I'm going to try and explain it as we go along. But basically they just let us see how much power is being drawn. And for the test we're going to try and charge an iPhone and a power bank at the same time. So that's the power bank plugged in, and it's currently charging at around 1.94 amp, which is really good. Let's plug in the iPhone. Okay, the iPhone has started charging. Let's see how much we're actually able to draw. Okay, this is looking good, guys. We've got the power banks fluctuating a little bit, but I think that's probably the power bank rather than the charger. So that's drawing around 1.8 amp, and the iPhone is drawing around 0.85 amp. Now that sounds pretty good to me actually. That's probably pretty close to, you know, what I would expect from these two. Now on this watt meter we can see how much is being drawn overall, and that is 15 watts, and that's 11.9 volts, 1.2 amp, 15 watts. So 15 watts here. Let's see how much we've got here. We've got 9 watts and 4.5 watts. So that shows it's very efficient converting the 12 volts to 5 volts. So I'm going to leave this running for a while, see if it gets hot, and check on the numbers. So it's been around 15 minutes and there is some warmth here, but I wouldn't call it hot. It's just warm basically. So I'm actually really impressed, and it is still outputting the same amount of power. We've got around 9 to 9.5 watts on the power bank, and then around 4.5 watts on the iPhone. For anyone curious, the power bank here is pretty much the equivalent of an iPad or other tablet, which normally consumes 2 amps, and the iPhone of course is pretty much standard at 1 amp. So I have to admit, I was a little bit worried when I first saw this car charger because there's so many out there that are absolutely junk. But this one is surprisingly as good as it says on the box. I mean, in an ideal world, I would probably want one that can do 2 amp, you know, on each one, so I could charge, say, 2 iPads at the same time. But you know what, realistically, I probably wouldn't use it. In fact, I've got this one here which can output 2.4 amp on every single port, this from another company, but you know, I don't really maximize the use of it, so something like this is probably, you know, much more practical, and it's a lot cheaper. I looked on Lazada just now and it's currently selling for 319 pesos, so that's pretty good. Now of course some people might say, oh, I've seen these at cheap shops for like 99 peso, but the thing is they won't output as much power. They will take so long to charge your device and they'll probably get super hot. So just be very careful with the super cheap ones. In this case, this does do as it says on the box, so thumbs up to them, and the price is pretty reasonable. And of course, you don't just have to use it for cars, you can also use it for solar, because one thing I've noticed is anything related to solar is super expensive here in the Philippines. So you go to a solar shop and you say, oh, I want to buy something that converts 12 volts to 5 volts for USB, and they say, sure, no problem, that's 1,000 peso. But you can just buy one of these. It's designed for a car, and you can use it on solar. So yeah, there you go. There are a lot of uses for this outside of the normal automotive use. So if you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.